It's just fantastic seeing these things in the flesh. I mean, they are so big and ambitious. I mean, it's Hollywood before Hollywood. And for Turner, I mean, for all artists in a sense, seeing what is possible, it's always an eye-opener. It's a sense, I worked as much as I could within my own parameters. The parameters are much wider. And Tintoretto would have shown Turner what the possibilities were. There is an argument to be made, this is figurative. I mean, hugely figurative. There are hundreds of figures here. And Turner didn't really work with the figure. There are a few examples where he has crowds and the occasional sort of recognizable figure. And he's, you know, Turner's known for his landscapes. But he would have picked up a lot of sort of interesting painting tips here in terms of composition, in terms of light. And it's interesting how artists are visual people. They'll find stimulus and inspiration in all sorts of different sources. And to find an artist who's so unlike him but still be so moved by his work and so impressed that he said this was better. He went to Rome after this. He said these Tintorettos were better than the famous Raphael's and Michelangelo frescoes he saw in Rome. So this did something to him. And you know, it looks very unlike his work, but there is a kind of romantic power and force and a kind of lighting that I see sort of resonating in his landscapes. Turner was excited to see up close the works of these artists he'd admired since he was a young man. But there were also other encounters of a more personal kind that were high on his agenda. Venice at this time was the playground of the wealthy tourists who embarked on the Grand Tour. A city where vice was as much a part of the architecture as the elaborate palazzos that lined the Grand Canal. By the end of the 16th century, there were reportedly nearly 12,000 courtesans in Venice, and a lonely visitor seeking adventure could gain access to their company for a fee, often at one of the casinos, the small gambling houses that littered the city. Francesco's offered to show me one of these casinos, the Casino Venier, which has been preserved just as it was in the 18th century.
Hello, Tai.
Hey, Francesco. How do you know it was me?
I was spy on you. How are you? Welcome.
This is beautiful.
Yeah.
What a lovely, lovely space.
The place of all the pleasures.
This is just stunning.
Yeah,
and nothing has changed.
Nothing
This is the original.
Changed. It's 17th century. It was the time that there were all the casino, the little houses, in a certain way.
Of course, that's what casino means. I always think, you know, of the modern casinos, these huge places, but actually, it's very small.
Very tiny, with very secret passages.
So what happened here?
Yeah, here they were speaking about literature, they were playing cards, they were listening to music. They were also speaking about philosophy. Like I remember in the last period of the Serenissima, they were speaking a lot about the French philosophy that in the end destroyed Venice. It's quite interesting.
That's quite interesting because I always think of casinos about money, you know, houses of pleasure,
they were gambling,
losing, you know, fortunes. But it was also a place to exchange ideas.
Yeah.
Were there many of them in
Yeah,
Venice?
but there were more than 100, incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, there were, I think, like there is one in San Moise where Casanova was going.
Oh, okay.
And then he was going in private rooms. And when he was going also to eat with his lover, there was just a hole where they were passing the food so they couldn't see which lover was.
So when you were saying about everybody being, sort of everything being secret, it's not against the police or illegality, it's about
Your
being
husband,
found,
your wife.
Your husband. Oh, I see. Francesco, you knew it was me before you'd seen me. How?
I was spying on you. Come have a look.
You are joking. You can see who's coming through the front door.
Exactly.
So you,
This is just...
so you control who comes into this sanctuary.
Yeah.
You don't want to let everybody in.
Exactly.
That is
Can you,
so
can you
sneaky.
imagine if there is a husband here or a wife, and then there is the husband coming by? You have to decide to go in another secret room. Yeah, this was the dining room. Yeah,
Okay.
you can see, yes, with a fireplace, the bacchanal there, and here they had their dinner. But
Very intimate dinner.
Again,
Again,
it's
it's
a very
about-
cozy dinner.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then when they were speaking, there was a secret codes
Yes.
of speaking between women and men, and you had to understand exactly.
Okay.
Like, if when a woman was seated and was like this, it was something like, maybe I'm available.
Okay.
If they were doing like this, no, I'm married.
Oh, okay.
If it was like this, 45 degrees,
Yeah.
maybe I'm interested.
You look, yes.
If it's like this, go away, no chance.
So interesting, because you always think in this situation, the men with the money had the power.
Yeah,
But sometimes the women could also say, no, thank you.
exactly.
Okay. It's no doubt certain that Turner spent some of his Venetian evenings in the company of courtesans. In fact, we have evidence that he did in a series of erotic sketches he created for his own private collection. To find out more, I'm meeting with Turner expert Nicola Moorby at Turner's house in southwest London. Hello, Nicola.
Hello,
to meet
Tai.
you.
Nice to meet you too.
Show me this lovely
Welcome to
house.
Turner's house.
Yes. What a lovely house.
Isn't it? Yeah, I
It's
think
very tidy, I've got a feeling.
it is. It's a very modest affair, really. And what's lovely is that Turner actually designed it himself. So we see these beautiful features that clearly he was very keen to have in, somewhat influenced by the neoclassical style of the famous architect Sir John Soane, but all in this very sort of modest, humble, quite cosy domestic setting.
What do you think was his impetus to build a house so far out of London, in a sense?
I think he wants somewhere away from the office, his gallery space in Queen Anne Street in the centre of London. That was where the business went on. But I think he's looking for somewhere that, a bolt hole maybe, that he can escape to, somewhere where his father, who lives with him, can be a bit more comfortable, do some gardening, just be able to get away from it all. And we're only about half a mile from the river here. You can look up this lovely skylight. It's a very Johnsonian feature.
A nice way to bring light into a stairwell.
Absolutely, in such a small confined space, it gives a sense of airiness.
So, Nicola, this is a small selection of Turner's rather personal sketches of an erotic nature, and I think these caused quite an uproar, especially with his main champion Ruskin. Can you talk us through a bit about?
Yes, I mean, they're not the sorts of things that you normally think of when you think of Turner, are they? And really, they just hint at this private life of Turner that we know so little about. John Ruskin, Turner's great sort of super fan, had a particular idea of Turner in his mind. And when he came across some of these very intimate personal sketches, he was horrified at the suggestion that Turner perhaps had an active sex life and
What a shock.
was going to places and drinking and visiting these kind of gloomy, seedy interiors. Yes, it was. He really had to readjust his notions and his understanding of Turner based upon what he found. From our point of view now, the way that Turner chose to conduct his life wouldn't really be all that shocking at all. But for the Victorians, the fact that Turner deliberately chose an unconventional domestic life. He chose not to get married. He had two daughters, two illegitimate daughters. Yes, all of that would have been very troubling for a mid-Victorian audience.
Did these drawings come out of visits to Europe? Was there a sense of him experiencing a sort of more liberated sex life and generally a life without the constraints of London, sort of what it expected of him when he travelled?
I think definitely part of Turner's compulsion to travel would have been, it was for professional purposes. These were never holidays. They, you know, the word that's generally used is campaigns. They're executed with professional rigor. But I think definitely part of that would have been this escape from the pressures of his business in London. And Turner seems to be someone who is quite a restless spirit. I think he finds it difficult to be at ease, to be at home, and has this relentless compulsion to get abroad. And certainly part of that would have been experiencing new sights, meeting new people, and relaxing and you know, taking time off.
It looks like Turner hasn't made his bed, Nicola. I don't know what he's up to. He must be really busy. So, sort of constantly escaping.
He uses a phrase repeatedly for over 30 years in his letters. If he's going away, he says, "I'm on the wing for Europe. I need to oil my wings for a flight." So that sense of the freedom of being able to travel for your creativity, letting your creativity take wing, but also, yes, that sense of a freedom, leaving behind your professional cares.
Turner spent only a week on his first trip to Venice. It was to be another 14 years before his second. But this second trip was to lead to a far deeper understanding of what he was dealing with here, an investigation into form and content that was to take his experiments with colour and composition much further than any of his contemporaries had dared to dream. Returning to the city in 1833, he moved to a new location, the Hotel Europa, situated in the Car Justinian, a grand palazzo, now home to the offices of the Venice Biennale, which stands on the Grand Canal near St. Mark's Square. I asked Francesco to meet me there. So, Turner moving here, was it a kind of step up? Was it more luxurious? Who stayed here?
I think they can have their privacy. There was more space.
Yes.
More landscape. And I think other people like him, after him, they came here like Proust or Verdi.
Oh, okay.
Because they wanted to be a little detached,
Yeah.
I think, from the crowd.
The craziness of the Rialto. Here, you're right, you have
Yeah.
space to breathe, but
Yeah.
you're very close to the centre of town as well.
At the
So
same
it's
time.
perfect,
To concentrate at the
Yeah.
inspiration. Because he took also inspiration from Byron and in a lot of his paintings.
Yes.
Like speaking about literature, Turner was really related to Byron but also to Shakespeare.
But I think a lot of Venice was related to both those writers, wasn't it? In a sense?
Yeah, completely. And I think in the mind of Turner, there is always the Merchant of Venice or some sketches of theaters.
Yeah.
And then there is the painting of Romeo and Juliet that it was taken from Verona to here.
A very strange thing to do. But it is a strange painting. It's a very revolutionary painting.
I think,
Juliet
yeah,
and Venus.
because it's completely taken from another point of view of what normally was taken.
Yes.
Because it's from so high, and you see everything from the top. You look down, and you see on the right there is Juliet that is a little, maybe she's dreaming. He's dreaming that is something that may be real or not.
Yes.
And then you see all the square that with all the people that sing ghosts and a lot of different lights.
Yes.
There was a light of the fireworks, the light of the Café Florian, there was the gas because Napoleon put the gas in Venice. And then there is the light of an early dawn. And some people think that is when Romeo thinks that Juliet with her light can obscure the light of the moon.
Can I also say, but from an artist's point of view, not only revolutionary in the narrative, but also revolutionary reinventing Venice from the viewpoint, but also using different sources of light. You have natural light, you have artificial light, you have warm light, you have cool light. It's a very interesting thing to do and very sort of, I don't think anybody had done that before. So it's interesting that he should come to a place like Venice and be able to reinvent himself and art with the help of Venice. It's an interesting marriage of place and
I think
ideas.
he got a lot of inspiration from Venice and from his ideas of making things, and also the evolution of the color, you know, how he started to see the colors and the things like mixing nature and human things together, like they can survive in a certain way.